Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast is designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. Before I introduce my guest, I just want to remind everybody that I will be doing another 12-week podiatry business reboot in 2023. It's going to start Wednesday, the 8th of February, and it will run for 12 weeks. Now, I'm only doing one in 2023. So if you've been sitting on the fence and thinking, I'm not quite sure, but you know your podiatry clinic needs a little, bit of a kick in the pants, get in and register early. All you need to do is go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, and all the details are there. Now, on to my amazing guest today. It is Dr. Brandon Macy, and he is the owner of Clark Podiatry in New Jersey, New Jersey, which is a very fitting name. Clark Podiatry Centre. I was wondering where you got the name from. Now I know. And he had been running this as a solo practice since 1981. So, Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm blessed and honored to be part of the legendary cast.
Well, you know what? How we sort of connected a little bit, even though it was on social media through Facebook, it was because of your dog Moose.
Yes.
Because you used to have a really cool dog called Moose that used to just do quirky things, and it really stood out.
Yes, Moose was a unique kind of dog. We got him as a 4-month-old puppy, and he just had a unique personality. That was about the time one of the beer companies was putting out the commercial about the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah.
Who looked kind of Hispanic, and he was actually a Jewish guy from Connecticut. But what happened, he kind of fit with him because Moose was a very mellow dog, and he could do pretty much anything. We kind of build him as the most interesting dog in the world, and he spent many times going to sorority parties and fraternity parties and tailgate parties at football games because my wife and I, our daughters, were all in college at the time, and he was just the life of the party. And he was, like I said, he was just kind of special. In 2016, we didn't like either of the candidates for president, so we kind of put him up as a presidential candidate at the time. Tried to get him on the ballot, and there were no terrorist attacks in our neighborhood while he was a watchdog, and things like that. So we had a good time with that. And if he was still around, he would have been very helpful during COVID because he was very much pro-vaccination because he had all his shots. So he thought everybody else should as well.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he was not long for this world. He passed away prematurely just about 5 years ago, and we miss him dearly. We have a new dog, Molly, who's a similar breed and a very nice girl, but she's not quite as mellow as Moose was. But he was kind of unique and quite the character.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing at the time when we first sort of connected through Facebook, and then I saw what Moose was doing at the same time. Our dog at home, Malibu, had a very similar sort of really placid personality. Everyone loved him, and I think they died around the same time. And
yeah, I
think our dog died first.
Yours,
Moose passed away afterwards, and I felt your pain. So anyone that's listening to this who has never lost an animal, you don't understand. I used to hear people say, "Oh, my dog, it was like a child." And I'm going, "Oh, come on, it's just a dog." But it's not. And then we've got Buffy the Wonder Dog now, who is a lunatic. Just compared to the other dog, is an absolute lunatic, full of personality. So anyway, we didn't come on here talk about
the house.
What was that?
Molly rules the house. Moose had a tag on his neck. He had a motto which said, "The bitches, they love me."
Yeah. I think if Buffy the Wonder Dog had a tag, it'd be "I am the bitch."
Molly's pretty close herself. She's got a mouthpiece on her. She rules the roost.
Yeah, and our dog just hates all other dogs except humans. Loves humans, but not a fan of other dogs. So it sounds like a veterinary program that we're running here. So let's get on to your story. I always like to ask people, what got you into podiatry in the first place? What was the interest? What sparked that passion?
Well, actually, when I was very young, somewhere around 10, 11 years old, I had a wart on my toe, and my mother happened to be working in an office building across the hall from a podiatrist. So I went to him, got my wart taken care of. And over the next couple of years, she had something taken care of. I had a cousin, something taken care of. And I actually had something that a few years later that was kind of like cuboid subluxation syndrome that he was able to solve. But he was very nice. talking to me about the practice. I got to see the x-rays, things like that, and it was pretty involved. And then I was, looking to get into some field of medicine. I was in a very competitive college at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and my grades were good, but not as good as those, top flight guys. It made
Yeah.
podiatry school a lot easier, but I enjoyed the idea of podiatry because it was one of those things where it suited my personality. You can set your own hours. You're not necessarily rushing. You're not getting called to deliver a baby in the middle of the night, things like that.
It's true.
And at the same time, you still got to help people, got to feel people to feel more comfortable. And that's really what it's all about, what we really do.
No, I think that's a good point. But I think that's a good point. It's really important what we do, but we do have that flexibility where you don't usually get someone ringing up after hours. We've got an ingrown toenail. Can you rush in and fix this up? Everything. And I've jokingly said, no one ever dies and everything can wait till tomorrow. And even though I get some people go, oh, no, there's some really serious things that could go wrong in podiatry. I understand that. However, you have the choice to set your practice up in a way where you don't have to do that.
Right. And when they call at 7:30 on Friday night with an ingrown toenail that's been bothering them for a week, they can wait until Monday, because even though they didn't want to disturb you over the weekend.
Yeah. I don't know if I've told this story on here. I've told a lot of people personally. It was we have Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. And it's a public holiday. So I was at my parents' place, I was on the Gold Coast at the time, phone diverted to my parents' house because I was there. And next thing the phone rings, I just answer it. And they said, oh, I'm such and such. I've got this really bad ingrown toenail. Are you open today? And I said, well, no, it's a public holiday. He said, well, I'm ringing everywhere. Nobody is open. I said, because it's a public holiday. He said, well, I'm from New Zealand. I'm a horse trainer. I just need this treated. He said, I'm going back to where I live. There's no podiatrist anywhere. And I leave like this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Can you come in? I said, no. He said, well, how much do you normally charge? And whatever it was at the time, I told him. And he said, I'll give you 3 times cash if you come in. I said, I will meet you there in 20 minutes. So as I'm walking out of the house, my mum says to me, what are you doing? So I'm going to work. Come on, it's a public holiday. Don't you realize, it's family time? So mummy's paying me triple cash. She went, oh, nothing that can't stay cold in the fridge.
That's it. Absolutely. We've all had those requests.
Yeah, 30-something years.
Had those requests.
But over 30-something years, that is the only time I've really had that sort of pressure put on me.
Absolutely.
So it is a great profession that way. And you've been a solo practitioner for most of your career as well.
All of my career.
All of your career.
Yes. What happens when I first started out, I finished my residency. I did podiatry school in Chicago, and my residency was out in Los Angeles. And I came back here because my wife at the time and my family was back here and didn't really have any things. And I found a practitioner who was who needed to retire.
Yeah.
And I bought out his small practice and, a little bit of equipment, and we kind of got started that way. He was practicing out of his home, and I kind of moved it up the street to a real office.
Yeah.
And, outfitted it a little bit more. And so I was, got started. It was a little better than starting cold. But then one of those things you mentioned about the solo practitioners having to get out to meetings and interact with others.
Yeah.
I started to get to the local meetings, and I ran into a couple of practitioners, one who I've met through, I'd say mentors, because my mother and grandmother used to go to podiatrists, and I kind of visited their offices and shadowed them and got connections from there. So I had one doctor ask me to cover a nursing home for him. And then I had another doctor who I used to play cards with in school. I met with. He had his practice was relatively new, but he had made arrangements with a lot of local senior citizen centers, drop-in centers, and apartments that he was seeing a boatload of patients, and he asked if I'd cover them for him as well.
Yeah.
And so that became a 2-day-a-week practice between all the nursing homes and senior centers, and I had 3 days in my own office. So so it kind of helped pay the bills.
So did you ever at any stage in your career think, I want to bring on another podiatrist and I want to get bigger, or you were really happy just keeping it as yourself?
Well, that's part of what I learned over the years. Early on, I kind of thought that I needed to do that. Okay. when I got busy with my own nursing home, that I kind of found, I got busy. I took over in 1992. I took over another practice from a guy in the next town who was retiring. And from my small office and his office, I kind of combined it into one larger office. And I was getting pretty busy, and I had somebody working covering the one nursing home that I had.
Yeah.
And it was kind of okay, but I didn't really enjoy having them working for me because they didn't really have anything invested in it, which I can understand up to a point. But at one point in time, I thought I needed to do something like that. And some of the things that I've learned over the years is that I don't need to do that. Became very content with how I was doing things.
Yeah.
And, bigger is bigger. Bigger is not always better.
I know. I have a saying, and this is what we used to talk about at work. It's better before bigger.
Right.
Because I've seen some and there's some podiatry companies here in Australia, some big ones, where they're large. I mean, they're quite huge, but they're not a lot of their practices are not very good. And they just keep expanding really, really average clinics. And I would rather have a better clinic than a number of average ones.
And that's actually been one of my practice philosophies, is that if I'm going to be smaller, I damn well better be efficient.
Yeah.
So we work on our various efficiencies around here. We get, our billing goes out right away. There are practices that have 2-3 months until they send out bills. Now, our claims are transmitted before we leave for the day and things like that. Our collections are right there. Everything, we got the notes. We do it as efficiently as possible, as humanly possible. And our error rate when we submit claims is really small too. So we also do it right because, why waste time? There's always enough time to do it over, never enough time to do it the first time around.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to get you on here, because we had this conversation before I press record, that there's a lot of podiatrists that set up the clinic. It's going really well. They're a solo practitioner, and they feel this pressure on them that they must get bigger and they must employ more podiatrists. Whereas your proof, and when Andrew Snyder was on here as well, and I know a lot of other really successful solo practitioners that are extremely happy doing what they're doing. They're making good income. They've got a great lifestyle, and they haven't had to employ other podiatrists to do it.
That's it. That's the idea. I've been very pleased with it. And then ultimately, about 8 years ago or so, through another meeting, I kind of overheard there were some people getting together to try and form a super group. And I kind of invaded the meeting, and I said, I want to listen in on this. And, why not? Didn't have to need a formal invitation anyway. So I went in there and listened, and there was a super group being started here in New Jersey, which got to be pretty big right at the beginning. And then it kind of reorganized and downsized. So we have something like 19 or 20 practices across the state of New Jersey with varying sizes. There are solo practitioners. There are larger groups with 3 or 5 offices and the like, and that works remarkably well.
Yeah.
One of the premises was trying to get better reimbursements from insurance company, which helped a little bit, but that really wasn't the whole thing. We got together. There are so many advantages, ranging from common billings, discounts off of insurance policies. We do internal auditing. We do essentially loss prevention. There's lots of compliance issues that we have here, and the group helps us keep toe the line and take care of it. We work on protocols. Our group has we own our own pathology lab.
Cool.
Profitable. We're part of an ACO, an accountable care organization, that if we do the cross referrals between the primary care doctors and the like, we get bonuses at the end of the year based on all of this. So
was there a criteria to join the group?
No jerks.
No. Okay, so a wanker free zone is what we'd call it.
Yeah. Basically, yes. Yes.
So you sort of became, you're sort of like the podiatry version of the traveling Wilburys.
Well, we have. I'm not quite familiar with the traveling Wilburys, but
yeah, the band. Oh, you don't know the band, the traveling Wilburys?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Anyone who's listening to this who also doesn't know the band, go and Google them and find out who they are, and you'll be going, oh, the super group.
There you go. Anyway, so we do that. We have some in-person meetings. We've had some virtual meetings. We do all kinds of things, and it's a great organization of varying sizes, and most of the offices, but not all. We even do our own. We have our own billing department that does it for a lot less fee than other billing companies do.
Yeah.
And so everything is really watched over. We do it in a good way. In a good way, that's what I mean. So we function independently, so you can run your practice the way you want to. Okay, some people do it this way, some people do it that way, and that's wonderful. And we help each other out when somebody's starting to get a little deficient. We analyze things, and we send somebody in there to help them, do a better job. We've had people go in there, practices, and say, I've never made more in a month than I did after I got this help. So we really help each other out, and so it's fantastic. In my particular situation, because I am a little bit older, we actually even have at least the outline or the potential for exit plans. Because if somebody wants to sell their practice, if somebody makes a bona fide offer, the group has the potential for the right of first refusal, to at least to match an offer, whether it's the group itself or if there's another practice in the group that wants to absorb practice like that. So you even have a pathway to get out, which really smooth things along. And it makes it easier when we have our common electronic medical record system and things like that somebody from the outside coming in would have to get used to.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit of a challenge. But for the most part, if somebody wants to come in the group, they apply to us, we check them out, investigate things like that. And there's a process that takes several months to be able to complete. Besides admitting them, then there's the transition into our group. So here and there, we'll bring somebody in, but we have a good team running everything.
So was it one person's idea, or did a few people have the idea of bringing a group together? Because I know, like, many years ago, I was at a podiatry conference on the Sunshine Coast. There was about 3 or 4 of us sitting around together, and I said, wouldn't it be great, instead of us all trying to be competitors all the time, is we put our heads together and started creating like a group that had a common interest in certain areas, and there were all these advantages, and everyone agreed it was a good idea, but nobody ever did it.
Well, this was something that wasn't quite like that, because we weren't competitors in a small area. We're kind of spread out. I think there had only been 1 or 2 super groups in the country at that time. I know there was a big one in Illinois at the time, and they were doing okay. And this was an effort where a few people got together and pooled their ideas, said, let's do this and let's improve on what that is. And then there was, like I said, some people, like I said, there was some internal strife that ended up causing some splitting. So some people, there was a bunch that left the group, and the ones that stayed together really, kept this going, and that's the way it's been ever since.
Yeah, well, when we were at this meeting, we weren't competitors. We were like 500 miles apart, 1,000 miles apart from each other. So we were definitely not competitors, I said, but we all have a common interest. There's certain things that we like. We all get along, and we spoke about it a few times, but it never really took off, because we were all just busy, growing our businesses.
Right. No, we're doing all that, and we're trying to figure it out. And I think, bit by bit, there were growing pains and the like. Yeah. And
when did this kick off?
I kind of joined about 2014, somewhere around there. That's about when it started. And we had to decide on a common electronic medical records program. We had to do those things and set up the organization and things like that. And we've refined it. I think we do a really, really, really good job with this.
But I think that's an important.
So glad that I joined.
Yeah, the important key with what you're saying, though, is you're a solo practitioner if you want to stay as a solo practitioner, but you really need to be connected with other people. Whether it's through super groups, whether it's at conferences and events, it's just, you need to network and maintain relationships with people, or otherwise you'll just sit in your clinic and become bitter and twisted.
That's right. I'm bitter and twisted as it is.
Yeah.
But I still do interacting with other people. I don't know about bitter. Twisted, yeah.
Yeah, twisted. Oh, we're all twisted in one way or another. So once you had your practice, a question that I'm often asked by solo practitioners is, But what do I do when I've got more patients than I've got time to actually see them? And they start feeling that they're getting overwhelmed and they're starting to get burnt out, which is why they think, I must employ another podiatrist to take on that workload because I can't do it all myself. So how did you cope with the increased patient numbers as your business became more popular?
To a certain extent, I never had that super problem where I was overbooked, where people were waiting a long time to come in. I never got super, super busy because part of what we do here is that we like to stay on time. We have
Yeah.
a more family approach here and the like. But to a certain extent, it was getting staff members and getting them more involved and moving things along a little bit faster and more efficiently. I think it was more increasing the efficiency than anything else. I never got overwhelmed with enough of a patient volume that I was doing. If somebody asked me, I said, you don't quite have the volume to warrant bringing somebody in yet.
Yeah.
So I could say I kind of escaped that particular problem. So it is what it is.
Oh no, I
But
think you hit the nail on the head though. It's efficiency. It's everybody doing their job and everyone being as efficient as possible. And it's surprising where 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 5 minutes over here, those throughout the day with different staff members can add up to a lot of hours over weeks and months and years.
Absolutely. And I also have to, not just because they may watch this podcast at some point in time, I also have to say that I have the best staff in the universe. I have to.
Oh, yeah, they needed to hear that.
Because exactly. No, my two main staff members, and I have part-time help, besides that, my two main staff members, one joined me in 2015, but my primary staff member has been with me for 38 years since 1984.
Wow. So how long have you been in practice for?
November will be 41 years.
All right. How many years do you think you got left? That's such a you can probably get another 20 in you.
Well, unless a meteor hits me, I'll keep going. I still enjoy seeing the patients. I really do. There's, the administration end of it sometimes can be a pain in the neck like it is for everybody.
Yeah.
So there'll be a point in time where, I start to slow down. Maybe I do take advantage of what the super group has to offer, and have somebody, have them take over, somebody to take over. And then I can, reduce the hours where they bring, some of the other younger people in and we grow the practice beyond where it is. And then we can do that type of thing where you have multiple practitioners, but I'm not in charge of the multiple practitioners.
That's true. I think your business is always got to serve you and suit your lifestyle. And I think
exactly
some people become accidental business owners in the first place, where they've set up the business and all of a sudden they've employed a couple of people and they're like, oh my God, now I have to try and manage these people and they're learning all that. And that's why I was asking, I think some people, they feel pressured that they must grow, they must employ another podiatrist. Did you bring in like podiatry assistants to help you do a lot of things that you were probably doing yourself, like over the years?
Well, my assistants, do help, and they start with the medical records. They're doing, partial scribe job.
Yeah.
So they get some of my medical records started. I obviously have to finish it and complete it and make sure everything's correct.
Sure, it's right. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But, having them do things and get things set up so I can go in and spend my time with the patients. I don't like to be one of those mills, those big things where somebody's in and out in 2 minutes and you're on to the next one.
Yeah.
And the patient said, I guess I saw him for a couple of minutes. I like to actually be able to talk to the patients. I like to find out, not just personal stuff about them. I like to question them about what's going on. A lot of times they'll talk to my assistants and say, oh, something's not getting better. And then when I talk to them, I say, well, it is getting better, not all the way there. So I can flesh out their complaints a little bit more. And then I also take the time. The way I like to approach things, I like to deal with why things happen. Sort of like Simon Sinek's find your why. I like to find the why of the treatment, of the treatment proposal. What's their problem? Why are they having the problem? And that's where I go after it. And that's why I love the biomechanics end to it. And that's also really how I got into the part of how I got into the children's thing, what I discovered about
that was going to be my next question, was about you setting up like a business within your business focused on pediatrics.
Right. I had somewhere around 2012, I had started from being, old time stuff. I did have a website that wasn't functional. I started going to practice management meetings where I ended up learning about about enhancing my website. I learned about doing things with social media, getting my database going, all those things that you're supposed to do. And that's where I ended up, getting for 5 years a business coach as well to help me along.
Yeah.
So with all that kind of got things going. And then I think I was at one of the meetings, I believe it was 2015, where there were like 3 lectures, kind of like sequential. One was about starting a center of excellence, which was, essentially a niche practice, and another one about pediatrics in general, and another one about running a pediatric practice. And that's where, I got the glow from the heavens, the angels were singing and all that. And it finally said, it hit me. I got to do this.
Was that in
And
Denver, Colorado, by any chance?
no, that one
No?
happened to be in Florida.
Oh,
That
right.
was
Okay.
a practice management conference. So I kind of did that, and I grabbed our friend Rem Jackson. And I
Yep.
sat him down. I said, "This is what I want to do. How do we do this?" And we kind of knocked heads together for about half an hour.
Well, that's how we would have crossed paths. We crossed paths initially at a top practices event.
Right. So I was, that's where I had my coaching for a few years.
Yeah.
So we kind of put together a plan, and I said, "This is what I'm going to do." And by the way, the pediatric lecture was put out there by, I don't know if you've ever had him on, Louis DeCaro.
No.
He's out of Massachusetts. He is head of American College of Foot and Ankle Pediatrics.
Okay.
And he'd be a delightful interview for you on the Legends podcast.
Well, if you can put a good word in for me, would be very helpful.
I will, because he runs a conference every year that's at a different national park in the United States.
Okay.
But he is a delightful interview, and he's almost like a Pied Piper for pediatrics. So he'd be fantastic for you. Anyway, so I listened a lot to him, and I told him what I was going to do, and he said, "You do that, and when you get the numbers together, I want you to give a lecture. I want you to give a presentation at one of our conferences."
Oh, that's good.
So exactly. So it was a little extra incentive. So from the first day, I took notes on everything that I was doing. So I put everything together over the course of maybe 9 months. I had an organized plan, and believe it or not, the whole process cost me less than $1,500 to get started.
And that's not much. That's cheap.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I did a little signage, a little promotion. We did some free screenings, and we kind of had like a big grand opening with the screening, and it started to take off. So from, I used to see some kids, but it was maybe about 10% of my new patients, where over the next couple of years, 30% of my new patients were under the age of 18.
All right. Okay. So really good. Did you put together like a free book at all, like about children's feet? Did you use that as part of the marketing?
We did a lot of the screening. We did screenings. I didn't necessarily put out a book like that. It was really various ways of promoting. I kind of did the shoe leather marketing. I visited pediatricians' offices and things like that. And that's where, and actually, as I was seeing the children, and I was using Lewis's Little Steps orthotics, some great prefab orthotics. He ought to pay me for this. Anyway, so
checks in the mail.
Exactly. He's just upset I'm not at his conference this week. But in any case, what I kind of learned and what I kind of figured out that kind of tied in with everything I like to do is that with children, they develop into adults, and all the adults we see with foot problems, they were children with not treated foot problems. Apples don't grow far from the tree. So when you see them lining up the kids, you have the parents take their shoes off, and the kids' feet look exactly like the parents.
Yeah, I recall. I actually recall I had the great grandmother, the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter all in my clinic at the same time. And the daughter took her shoe off, and she had this certain part of her foot looked a bit odd. And I said to the mother, "Can you take your shoe off for a sec?" She took her shoe off, and I went, "See, that's what it's going to look like in 25 years if you don't do something about it." And the mother goes, "My mother's sitting outside with my grandmother." I said, "Well, bring them in." So they came in, and you could see this deformity just progressing.
That's
it was terrible.
Correct. So like the simplistic way is anything with pediatric flat foot, they may or may not be symptomatic young, and they may just look different. Whereas they get a little older and they're playing ball, they might get the heel pain, they might get various pains. But then I look in an internal knee rotation, I said, that's where your grandmother is going to get knee replacement surgery in her 60s or 70s. And mom usually says, "Oh my God, she just had the surgery." So I said, I'm trying to put orthopedic surgeons out of business, saving them from knee surgery later on. So yes, this is just how it becomes that way. And it got to the point where some of the mothers would say, "Do you treat adults?"
Yeah. Oh, let me
And
think. Of course I do. Yes.
yeah, I might treat one or two. So, so I have all these children coming in who are bringing their parents in
Yeah.
a lot of times. So it really just snowballs from there. And before COVID hit, I had the 2 biggest years of my practice ever.
And that was one of the things we used to, whenever we had an adult in the clinic and we were treating them, we were looking at their feet. And that was one of my questions I said to them: do you have children? If
Exactly.
they said, simple question: do you have children? Yes, I do. How many you got? 2. I go, when you look at their feet, do they look like yours or look like your wife's feet? And sometimes they go, fortunately, they look like my wife's feet. And I go, okay. And every now and then they go, well, my son's feet are sort of like my wife's, but my daughter's feet look like mine. And I go, well, that's cruel for not bringing. At first, that's cruel for giving her your feet. But if you've got these problems, more than likely she's going to develop similar problems. Can you bring her in? And they would bring her in. All you do is ask the right questions.
Oh, we get the siblings coming in and things like that. The other thing is that kids are so much more fun than adults.
Yeah.
I go in there and I start talking to whether they're 3 years old or 16 years old. They come in, I talk to them, and I look at the parents and I'm not interested in you. You're just an Uber driver. And obviously we work them in after that, but I try and just connect with the kid first. And they are so great because they just want to make sure they're not getting an injection.
Yeah, true.
As long as they don't get any shots, they're good. And they're good. Some are shy, some are not. I've had shy little kids. Next visits they come in, they're running up and giving me hugs and everything. They don't care about co-payments, insurance. They don't care about anything else. They just, we just have fun with them. We just have a blast with them. I love kids.
Yeah, I used to have my guitar sitting in the corner of my consultation room. Remember, this young kid about 10 comes in, he sits down, he says, "Oh, do you play the guitar?" So I do. I said, "Do you play?" He says, "Yes, I do." I said, "Well, when you come in for your next visit, bring your guitar with you." I said, "And I want you to teach me something, and I'm going to teach you something, and I'll block out an extra 10 minutes. So he came in with his guitar, and we sat there, and we strummed away and had a good old time, and he left. And then my wife said, "That kid will never in his lifetime, while you're practicing, ever want to see anybody else other than you."
Absolutely.
And at the same time, not only did we help fix his problem, but I had fun. It was fun each time he came in. He's bringing his guitar, and we'd just mess around.
Oh, I love that. I love that sort of thing. Oh, absolutely. We have a great time.
And my wife also said, and if his parents try to take him anywhere else but here, he will kick up the biggest stink.
Truth.
So he became a patient for life.
Oh yeah, once in a while you run into him for different reasons and things like that, and that's a wonderful story. That's a wonderful story.
But it's funny too, where I'd have patients who would come in, maybe in their 40s, and they'd have this, their son or something with them. And I'd say, "Oh, how'd you find out about us?" And they go, "Well, actually, my parents brought me in here, 25 years ago when I was 15." And you go, "Oh my God, am I that old?"
Yeah, I've had that, and I've been here at it longer than you.
Yeah.
No, I have a little girl used to good company. Her sister, she was 6, a cute little pixie, and she's about to graduate college now. And I've seen her and her parents over the years, and it's wonderful. She's just a doll.
Yeah, and I think it's just the fun part. I think the other part of the benefits of being a solo practitioner as well is every patient. Every patient that comes through that's being treated, they're having contact with you. So you really get to build these really strong relationships over a number of decades. Whereas when you have other people working for you, and like I say, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a big clinic with 10 podiatrists, but when you have other podiatrists working for you, you don't know every patient. And it's not that same connection with everybody.
Oh yeah, we love it. There's one patient, she's just about ready to be finished with us because she's getting a dementia there. But I saw her in my first month of practice.
Oh, right.
She's 91 or 92 years old now. So, but she's a doll. She's there for birth of all my children and all that. So, we just love her. She's just a sweetie. So we have some of those, and my staff gets to know them probably even better than I do. And when somebody leaves or somebody passes, they're heartbroken. they're heartbroken because that's just how we do things here. We just
Yeah.
love it.
So how do you fit in holidays around being a solo practitioner as well?
Well, what happens is that because of all that, what we do is when we go away on vacation or we do conferences and the like, yeah, we do close the office for that, long weekend or week, things like that. And that's kind of how we do things. That's our vacation time, and we do as best we can to plan it as much in advance as possible. So we do that. So it works out. It's always worked out.
And your team, do they all have holidays or breaks at the same time you have it, or they can
Well,
have
that's
their
what we do.
holidays at different times? That's just what you do?
They can, and there are times they have give a certain amount of paid time off, and there are circumstances where they're going away. They have my longtime assistant Audrey. She has her grandchildren and living in Florida, so here and there she wants to go visit them.
Yeah.
Obviously aside from COVID. So if they need to take a couple of days for doing that, we have enough backup. Around here, I always believe in backups for every system. So with all that, it doesn't happen that often, but there's enough going on. We can work around it, and there's enough trust going back and forth that if nobody's going to ask for something that they don't really need.
No, that makes sense. So in America, is it only 2 weeks holiday per year?
There's not a mandatory thing, but also part of it is within our group, we do have guidelines for full-time and part-time personnel.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do is that technically, because of my hours right now, my staff is technically part-time, so I'm not officially obligated. But what happens is that I pay them for if I take a day off, and they're not doing anything or things like that, I pay them for the day. So I don't worry about that. I just consider that paid time off, and that's fine. So, I think they get an appropriate amount for, what's going on, but it's not a government mandated amount.
All right. So even if somebody is part-time, it's not mandated that you must give them so many
Under
holidays.
30 hours per week. Under 30 hours per week.
All right. So in Australia, if you're working full-time, which is 38 hours per week, it's
Right.
4 weeks holiday. They get paid. 4 weeks paid holiday.
They may want to move to Australia for that, mind you.
What about sick pay?
They just want me to retire.
Yeah. What about sick pay? If somebody rang up and they can't work their day because they're sick, there's no sick pay or time off or anything like that?
Sure, there is.
Oh,
Absolutely.
there is?
I see. I'm good with that. My staff has been basically healthy. I've been very healthy. I haven't, in 41 years, I've missed 10 days of work, and 9 of them were when I had my gallbladder out 20 years ago. So fortunately, I've been healthy enough too, to miss things. But, if they need to call out, they call out. Absolutely. I don't worry about that. We have enough backups and ways that we have enough workarounds.
Yeah. I think my whole career, I only ever had two sick days. One was food poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have the day off because it wouldn't have looked good treating patients holding a bucket at the same time.
Nope.
And the other time was one day when I just rang up the clinic and said, I'm not coming in today. And they said, why? I said, I am taking a mental day. They went,
you need things like that.
Well, what do you mean? I said, I know. I said, I've just got so much going on at the moment. I said, if I come into work, I'm liable to kill someone. I said, so I have to choose. Do I just take a mental day today, or do I spend the rest of my life in prison as of tomorrow? I said, so I'm taking the mental day just to clear my head. And they went, Tyson, we think that's a good idea.
That's a wonderful idea. Now, there are times they take off. There's maybe a one-day meeting. I've been invited to a golf outing where I take a day or something like that. And I said, that's fine. And if I'm taking off that day, they get that day as well. That's perfectly fine. Although sometimes my staff will say, I'm happy that you're not in the office. I'll take care of stuff that you take care of when you're not there. Take more time off.
Yeah, and but that's always good too. When you have a few days off, there's always stuff at your clinic that this catch up. So I know if I'd gone away for a couple of days, we'd keep the clinic open, and there was always something that needed to get done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what, that's kind of what does, and everything gets done. Okay. We all have our days where we need the mental health day. Sometimes I'll just bang my head up against the wall. And I use the line from Danny Glover from all the movies there. I'm getting too old for this shit.
Oh yeah, I know sometimes. And that was when I took that day off. It was one of those, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but there was a lot to do with work. And I've always had a bit of a hand problem. And it was one of those times where I think my hands was really sore, that not sore enough that I couldn't work. But yeah, if you've ever had long-term injury and it just starts to get really frustrating and you're trying to do something and you can't do it to your full capacity. And it's like wearing glasses. Yeah, how many times you can pick up something to read it, you go, bloody hell, where do I put my glasses? And you go, and it can get really, really frustrating. And I think it was like that. It was a build-up of certain things, plus stuff that was happening at work. And I think every now and then it's good just to know when you're not at your best. It's just go, you know what, I'm taking the day off. And I
Because I
think
know
that's
when you
okay to
walk
do
in
it.
when you walk in that treatment room, doesn't matter what you feel and how good or how bad you feel, doesn't matter what's going
Yeah.
on in your life. When you walk in, those patients, well, they care about you. They don't care about what's bugging you. They need and they deserve your best effort, the best that you have to give that day.
Yep,
And
I
that's
agree
when you walk in
100%.
that room, it's not even just showtime. You just say, they deserve it. That's what they're paying for, and I'm going to give it to them.
I know. My wife used to she was quite impressed how when her and I were working together, when it was just me and her, and she'd be at the reception, we'd be talking about something that had happened at home, and we'd be a bit heated. And of course, like I was right.
Of course.
In case she's listening to this, then maybe she was right. But she would say, how can you just switch off, go into that room with that patient, and all of a sudden I hear your big happy voice come out? I said, because that's what patients deserve. They don't need my baggage. Or if we were talking about something, or if I'm upset about something that's happened in the world, they don't need to know that. They just need 100% undivided attention and a happy demeanor at all times.
That's it. That's what they deserve. That's what we're here. We're doctors. We're here to help them. We're not here to unload our baggage on them.
No. Yeah, you'd hope for the patient to come out. How's your foot? Foot's great, but geez, I can't. I'm depressed. Now I'm depressed.
Exactly.
Every time I get here, I'm depressed, but my foot feels good.
That's right. That's right.
And I have met podiatrists though who just have this negative, just down sort of personality.
They find the cloud for every silver lining.
Yeah, it's like they've got the world on their shoulders. They remind me of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
Exactly. And we all talk about going to the meetings and networking. When I go to certain meetings, if I hear guys whining and bitching and moaning about this, that, and the other thing, I move on.
Oh yeah.
I just can't stand being with the negativity like that, because it's like, okay, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong, but I'm not going to go wallowing in that. It's like, okay, there are problems, but what are you going to do? I can only do what I can do. You can only control what's in your control, and that's what you do.
So true. So what are your plans over the next few years? So I'm just looking at the time. We're going to wrap up in a sec, but where do you see yourself? So you've had a successful career. Do you think there's another aspect of podiatry or something that you want to dig into, or are you just going to just keep focusing on like the pediatrics?
And that's, well, pediatrics is a good part of things. And that may be what as I narrow it down, what it gets focused on. But I love seeing even the older patients and all the general things as well. I like working with the residents at the hospital. I like, teaching them whatever it is that I can pass on to them.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's part of what I'm trying to figure out as we get a little bit older. Are there ways that I can essentially give back and essentially teach, or just spread out what I've learned for whatever value it has to whoever wants to listen to me. And that's really the idea, whether it's helping out administratively within our group, helping the other practices in our group, or whether there's something outside the group. I don't know what's out there. Keep my eyes and ears open, because you never know what you're going to hear and from who and when.
I think that is great. So, Brandon, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast and sharing part of your story. And I think there's any solo practitioners out there who have been, I don't know if I'm, should be staying solo or not. I think you would have inspired them. And even people that have got larger clinics, I think they would have picked up a few things from what you said that are going to make them better business owners. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Believe me, thank you for inviting me. I'm absolutely honored to be part of this.
You were always on my list. I had you on the list. It was just getting the right timing of when to bring you on.
Now I'm going to be the 224th or 225th legend, something like that. But it's still, pretty good number.
It's in the 220s. It'll definitely be in the 220s.
Okay.
Okay. I look forward to catching up with you in person one day as well.
Absolutely. Look forward to it myself.
Okay. See you later. Bye.